Hi, I'm wildlife artist Ryan Kirby, and I've got a new painting going on. I've got a lot of great feedback from the paintings I've been putting online and sharing my process in the studio. Getting ready for Southeast Wildlife Expo coming up in a couple of months, and I'm doing some mid-sized to smaller paintings specifically for the show. This is the first one I'm doing. It's of 3 pheasants, 2 roosters and a hen, and as you can see, I've got the sketch applied to the canvas. I stretched the canvas last night and prepared it with 2 or 3 layers of acrylic gesso. I put the sketch on, I put another layer on top to provide my a layer of white surface between the sketch and my paint, so I'm not picking up a bunch of graphite in my paint. And what I've done is I've just taken a little bit of sandpaper and I've taken off some of the tooth in the center of the canvas and around the pheasant's heads, so that when I go to put detail on the pheasant's heads, I don't have a lot of tooth, a lot of texture, a lot of grit there, and it just helps me get a little bit more detail in the places that I want to focus on, which is the bird's heads. So I'm going to get started. Use the same underpainting that I typically do, a burnt sienna and yellow ochre, and get a color down, get my tones defined, and then we'll start popping color on from there. So let's get started. So here's the progress about 4 to 5 hours into the painting. I've got an underpainting lined up. It covers most of the canvas and it lays out my composition, where I want the birds, where my lightest and darkest areas are. And at this point I'm going in and I'm mixing color to be accurate to the pheasants, and I'm popping it right on top of the underpainting. On areas where I want there to be pure color, like here in the neck, I take a palette knife and I pop color directly on it. In the background, I want to loosen up and free up and show a lot of that underpainting. So I do a lot of free brush strokes, a lot more loose in the background. And it isn't necessarily chaos, it's very controlled, it's just the way that I portray it. Keep the detail tight in the pheasant's head and the neck, and then really loosen up in the background. And it gives it a nice central focal point on the birds when the detail is isolated to where you want it to be. This one's going really well. Should be a couple more days and we'll have it wrapped up. Wrap the painting up. I put a long day in the studio in today. What I did today is I worked on the tail feathers, the wing, and some of this down feathers in the background here, and then I also did the entire foreground. My strategy with the foreground was to keep the underpainting dark. I put all my dark areas that needed to recede in the underpainting, and then I came in with a palette knife and I laid pure lines of color in for all these blades of grass. What that palette knife does is it gives me a really hard edge and a really bold, clean color for all these highlights and all these different parts and pieces of the grass as it lays down and stands up in all the different directions. And what I'll do is I'll put a stroke of pure color on with a palette knife, and usually that puts a lot of paint on the canvas. Then what I can do is I can come in and I can modify that with a brush stroke. I can take a bristle brush on top of it and I can extend that brush stroke. I can soften the edge a little bit. I can take it in different directions based on what I want that individual blade of grass to look like. And I've kept the edges very soft in the background, But then in the foreground and around the pheasants, I want contrast, I want color, I want really bold edges and lots of strength here where the pheasants are. So that's why I work a lot more with a palette knife in here versus in the background. Overall, the piece has turned out really well. I'm happy with it. Come by the Southeast Wildlife Expo in Charleston this February, and you can see this one in person as well as all my other originals. And be sure to check out RyanKirbyArt.com for more.